Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm one of your co-hosts, TV, aka TV on Basketball, alongside my co-host Jay, aka the Knockdown Jay. How's it going, my guy?
Bro, it's going good. Summertime is always good for basketball time because nonetheless, even though there's not actual games being played with high stakes, there's still high stakes. We got summer league basketball.
It's
We got
basketball, bro.
Olympic games. Come on, man. At the end of the day, basketball is basketball. I know it might not be your favorite team, but hoops is hoops. And right now we've got a lot of it. And if you watched our WNBA episode the other day, you know that we are very tapped in to every form of basketball that's being played at the moment.
Oh, yeah, no, 100%. And I encourage you guys to go check out the last episode because it wasn't NBA related. We talked fully WNBA in the last episode. That was a super fun conversation. We even had to do a WNBA quiz for that one. So I highly recommend that you go check that out. That was an awesome episode. But today, we're talking, now that the dust has kind of settled on the offseason, we're going through our winners and losers of the offseason so far. Obviously, there could still be some trades happening between now and the start of the season, but we'll revisit those when we get there. But because it's been like 7-8 days since everyone has been fully signed, we're gonna go through our winners and losers, and that's gonna be the majority of this episode. We got that. We got the draft. We also gonna end it off with an awesome quiz today, so it's gonna be a great episode. But before we get into that, we do have to plug our socials. Remember to follow our individual socials at the knockdownj/shootingjumper and TV on Basketball. Those links can be found in the description down below. In terms of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, make sure to follow our daily content on TikTok and Instagram. We've had a little bit of a lull there, but we're now snapping right back into it. I got on the Summer League previews. Going to talk about some Olympic stuff going forward as well. And then, of course, you got the clips and everything, so check those out. In terms of the YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell. That would be highly, highly appreciated. And if you're listening on any of the podcast networks, Spotify and Apple, leave a review, subscribe, all that good stuff. Jay, are you ready to get into this?
Yeah, bro. It's been a very eventful last couple of weeks in terms of the offseason. And now, I'm not going to say the dust has settled, but I mean, we're at this point where a lot of rosters are pretty good in terms of where they're formulated. There's still a couple of decent guys still on the block. We'll talk about them in terms of the trade block, guys that are still free agents. We'll get into that stuff briefly towards the back end of winners and losers. But a lot of teams got better this summer, TV.
And some teams got worse too. That's why we're doing
good point.
winners and losers of the offseason so far. And Jay, I'm actually going to throw it to you. We're going to start positive over here. We always try to be as positive as possible. We're gonna stick the negative stuff near the end there, but we're going to start with the positives. Maybe we'll go even back far. Who knows? But we're going to go with our first winner here, Jay. Who do you have as a winner of the NBA offseason so far?
I think the biggest winner by far, without fail, has to be the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, Daryl Morey, this is something that basically the Sixers have been sitting on for the last 2 years. When you really chronicle through everything that they've been through the last 2 years, it's all been to culminate to this moment of being able to put another all-star caliber player next to Joel Embiid. Obviously, this builds out next to a Tyrese Maxey, who also got his rookie contract max extension this summer as well. And they just were able to make this roster this might actually be the best combination of full optimization and talent that Joel Embiid has ever played with. And he's had Ben Simmons, he's had JJ Redick, Tobias Harris when he was better, Jimmy Butler. He's had very good iterations of this Philly team, but the 2024-2025 Philadelphia 76ers, they look like they have the real opportunity to be the second best team in the Eastern Conference. I mean, let's look at their summer. They got Paul George. They got Caleb Martin for a deal. They bring back Kelly Oubre. They bring back Kyle Lowry. They are able to bring in Eric Gordon, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
And Andre Drummond as well.
Andre Drummond was actually one of the earlier signings they were able to lock down as well. They have a solid draft that involves bringing in Jared McCain, a big-time shooter that they can bring off the bench. And obviously the TikTok channel is going to be popping for Philadelphia fans as well.
Sure.
I mean, they really put together a really, really strong summer. And the most important thing is they gave Paul George the max and we're left with the mid-level exception, obviously vet minimums, things that were kind of going to cap strap them around the edges, and they made the very most out of it. And I mean, when you look at this team next year, on paper, because that's all we can do in the summertime,
Yes.
on paper, the Philadelphia 76ers look like a top 5 team in the entire league. On paper, this looks like a team that should be at least in the ECF. On paper, this team looks like they have a chance to dethrone the Boston Celtics. And that is the kind of offseason that warrants being considered the biggest winner of 2024 in terms of the summer, at least.
100%, man. This team is looking nice. Yeah. And also, I mean, you talked about this even goes down to their draft. Jared McCain, like you mentioned there, Adam Bono was actually a really good steal in that second round as well. And then, have you seen that boy Ricky Council playing right now in Summer League?
Yeah, man, man. I mean, that's gonna be a steal that a lot of people don't really pay attention to.
But this guy has been balling right now in the Summer League too. So Philly fans who are watching Summer League are definitely excited for the young guys coming in. But like you mentioned, they restructured their team around Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. And even though they lost on Tobias Harris, even though they've lost, Ben Simmons in the past, Jimmy Butler, they've come out this other side looking really, really good. Obviously bringing in Paul George, and they've brought in guys to just like fill out the other pieces where you have you have insurance for Joel Embiid now and a better version of Andre Drummond. Remember, this is the second time back in Philly, and the last time in Philly it wasn't the best sort of deal. But after a couple of years there in Chicago, he kind of rebuilt his stock, and he's going to be a great piece for them. Kelly Oubre, they got him on a deal, by the way, on a freaking deal for Kelly Oubre. Same thing with Caleb Martin. They are like what, in my opinion, like 9-10 deep at this point.
And they are insanely built.
They're insanely built, and they also got Eric Gordon, who's, didn't end the season great with the Phoenix Suns, but we know what he is capable of, and that's Daryl Morey's boy. He had to have a Houston Rocket in there somewhere. But this team is looking really good, and they have like one of the biggest things last year was when we saw them fall from number 2 in the East or number 1 in the East at the time, all the way down to number 7. What was it? It was the injuries. It was the depth. We didn't have that sort of insurance, knowing Joel Embiid's injury history. And now you got that covered. And even if that happens to go down, we know what Tyrese Maxey can be. And now you have Paul George on your team. They are set. If any time is the time to dethrone the Boston Celtics, if you're Philadelphia, it's right here, right now. And they look amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I mean, if you don't think Philly was one of the biggest winners of the offseason, first of all, you just must not be paying attention around the league to some of the other teams and what they've done. But, I mean, this is a team that I think a lot of people are going to get behind, Philly fan or not, in terms of being probably the best squad like in terms of opportunity. Philly looks like the team that has the best chance to knock Boston off. Now, we know what New York did. We know what New York was able to do. Bringing back OG Anunoby, bringing in Mikal Bridges.
We'll get to them very quickly because
we're not going to go into it too deep, but they did some stuff that made them very good this offseason. But Philly did something different, man. Philly did something different.
Yeah, 100%. And they are a clear winner here. All right, my first winner. I'm going to go to my first winner here. And, bro, the winner here is Victor Wembanyama. Yeah. Because we were wondering, we know how his potential is going to be, but how good is Victor Wembanyama going to be in the NBA? Yeah. Well, in his first season, he's basically a top 25 player. Am I wrong to say that?
No, I think you're right in the right track. Some people might even say you're putting him low, depending on where they come from. Yeah,
I'm willing to hear the argument that he's a top 20 player. This is how good Victor Wembanyama is right away. But what did the Spurs do? The Spurs looked at their roster, and what was the problem? Playmaking to Victor Wembanyama, getting some veteran presences around Victor Wembanyama, and they made moves exactly for what they needed in the draft. With the 4th overall pick, drafted Stephon Castle. Brought in Chris Paul on the mid-level exception. They somehow, when that DeMar DeRozan trade, picked up Harrison Barnes, and we talked about Harrison Barnes, bro. He is just that solid wing that any team would want, especially a young team who just is trying to figure things out. Especially when you have players like Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, you need a Harrison Barnes in that wing rotation to help them steady themselves, especially around a presence like Victor Wembanyama. The Spurs built their team great, and to be honest, with depending how good Wemby can be, they might make like a Orlando Magic slash, Houston Rockets type, jump quicker than you know, bro. These type of generational talents come every once in a while, and they just take teams from here all the way to here very quickly. And bro, not just that, this guy's about to play in the Olympics. He like the France has technically like maybe on paper have like the second or third best team there, and there's just so much room for this team to grow. Wemby has a chance to even put himself in top 10 conversations this year with like how great his skill set is. And if the Spurs like have, wins backing up from it, I wouldn't say that's impossible. This has been a fantastic offseason for Wemby and just the outlook of the summer in general and going into the next season.
TV, I think you could make the argument that Wemby was one of the biggest winners just with the Chris Paul acquisition alone.
Yes.
I mean, literally, we have to remember the two things that were the real downfall for the San Antonio Spurs last season was that for some reason they didn't trust Trey Jones enough to run a real point guard for what felt like half the year. And them running Victor Wembanyama at the 4 instead of the 5. And people forget this. The only reason Victor Wembanyama finally started playing the center position was because once everybody down to Charles Bassey at the center position went down with injury, they had nobody else to put at center, so they had to rock with Wemby at center and found out, wait, maybe this guy does actually just work better at the 5. And we saw the 7-foot plus demigod we all kind of expected going into the season really kind of like show his true colors towards that part of the year where we got to see him, play a position that's a little bit more natural to his size. And you now pair him with Chris Paul, who super competitive, definitely one of the best facilitating point guards in NBA history, a significant floor raiser. TV, we talked about this about a week or two ago around the time that the acquisition happened, just how Chris Paul has a history of uplifting franchises across the kind of the entirety of his career, with the more notable ones actually coming recently with like the Oklahoma City Thunder year where he, Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, and those boys made the playoffs in a year where OKC was expected to kind of like fall off and tank.
Right.
Like it was supposed to be just another, off year where they go ahead and, continue to utilize draft picks, put their little young squad together. And they were ahead of schedule way before they meant to be ahead of schedule, at least at the moment. But then you bring in Stephon Castle. You know what I mean? You get him. You get our boy Harrison Barnes, as you mentioned earlier. And now you're going into year 2 Wemby, which, wow, by itself might be an upgrade in its own, in a vacuum.
Yo, is it wrong to say that he could potentially be a top 10 player this year just by his like ability alone and now that he has a point guard with him?
TV, I think we might be doing him a disservice to not at least start putting him in the conversations for how high he really can be considered amongst the best in the NBA, just out of the mere fact that I think we're going to see. It sounds crazy to say that we're going to see even more unbelievable things from Wemby after some of the crap we saw last year. But now that you attach a Chris Paul to that, it creates a completely different dynamic to the point that like there's going to be some stuff next season that like we're just not going to be able to fathom. And we thought that last year. So that just goes to show you how high the bar is going to be set. And I think he's going to smash right through those doors. San Antonio is one of those sleeper teams. Now, the Western Conference is not like the East. The East with Orlando. Orlando was my pick for last year, but there were certain things that played into Orlando's favor that helped assist in my, belief in them last year. The West is still a bear, but what plays in their favor is I think once you get past it's a top heavy set, but that middle section from like 7 to 10, I think it could go anybody's way. And at the end of the day, you just have to finish in the top 8. You just have to finish in the top 8 to have a chance at the postseason.
Oh, top 10. Top 10, you get a chance. Yeah, top 10, you at least get a chance.
Yeah, true. Top 10. I mean, at the end of the top 10, you still get to play in the play-in tournament. And that, I mean, that's been a good ticket for a handful of teams in the past as well. So do I think that the Spurs can be a 10 or better team in the West? Yeah, I think they're better than bottoms. I think they're better than bottom 5, which all they have to do is crack the play-in tournament, and then everything's up from there.
Yeah, I mean, if you're any team not named the Jazz or the Trailblazers are going to be part of this whole dogfight. This is how crazy the West is being, man. And the Spurs can definitely join the mix, especially when you have someone as great as Victor Wembanyama. So the fact that his team is more catered towards him now, you have a freaking Chris Paul and Greg Popovich together just feels like an insane pairing, like maybe 10 years ago, obviously. But I mean, like this in general, like this is great to have them together. So the Spurs, I would say, just wouldn't be in general. Especially if we can also medal at the Olympics. This is going to be one hell of a summer for Victor Wembanyama. But yeah, he's definitely a winner here. Jay, you know what? Instead of going another winner, I'm gonna ask you to go with one of your losers here. Who do you have as a loser of this NBA offseason?
So one of my first losers is the 3-and-D wing market. This offseason was really weird in terms of who got paid and who got lowballed. For example, my boy Patrick Williams. Love my boy Patrick Williams, despite the fact that he hasn't produced a day in his life yet, it feels like.
Yeah.
And coming off of a foot injury where he didn't play for most of the year, dude got a significant contract extension. Obi Toppin lost his starting job to Pascal Siakam, got a significant payout. Miles Bridges, who many had issues with in terms of where he was going to be able to land in this market, considering, character detrimental issues that kind of held him up for the last year and some change, it feels like, got $25 million a year. But then you have guys like Caleb Martin, Simone Fontecchio, Sadiq Bey, who obviously is going to be injured for a good portion of the season, so that's kind of part of it.
But still, $7 a year. Ooh.
Yeah, we're still talking about a guy who once upon a time was a first-team all-rookie guy in Sadiq Bey at that. Caleb Martin, Haywood Highsmith. These are all guys that, like, their skill sets all seem really well fit for, like, playoff caliber teams, yet here they are getting lowball raw dog deals. And that kind of stems from the fact that a lot of the big market money went to some of these other guys that I think kind of came with a certain name attached to them. If you remember, Obi Toppin, former top 10 pick. Patrick Williams, former top 4 pick. Paul George is Paul George. OG Anunoby. The Knicks were gonna give him a lucrative deal considering the fact that they traded so much for him. These are all guys that I think kind of had a different aura around them from a politics perspective. But when you cut on the tape, Caleb Martin is going to produce on a playoff team in a much more significant way than Patrick Williams is or Obi Toppin is. Haywood Highsmith is going to contribute much more in terms of winning basketball games for the Miami Heat than Patrick Williams or Obi Toppin are, right? Yet they got paid significantly less. The 3-and-D wing market, man, it saw a really weird drop. And it was weird, especially considering that fit guys really did get paid this summer. Like a good handful of fit guys, like guys that just fit well on rosters based off their skill set. A lot of those dudes did get paid well. Yet the 3-and-D wing market, it felt like it got a little undervalued this summer.
I mean, like, Patrick Williams is like an interesting case, obviously, with like your team. Obi Toppin, I will defend Obi in a sense where him and TJ McConnell were like a big part of why the Pacers went as far as they did in this past postseason, even though he did lose a spot to Pascal Siakam. I was surprised he still re-signed with the Pacers because I thought he was going to end up getting bigger money elsewhere. Yeah. But he stayed with the Pacers anyway. But at the same time, like, I think a big part of this, again, and we're going to talk about this later, which is the second apron stuff, is the teams are very much managing their budgets a whole lot better now to even like get themselves like not even like getting close or maybe like touching that ability of a second apron, because we haven't seen like
Better
the
or
true
more afraid TV? That's the question I would ask you though. Like better or more scaredy cat? Like it feels like front offices are clenching their pocketbook, not necessarily moving with like smarter, like with a smarter mindset. It feels like guys are kind of fearful to throw money out now.
I think what they're valuing now, and I think this is what they want. This is what the NBPA and stuff wanted with the second apron, is that they wanted to go in a direction where you value these second round picks potentially as those guys who are on cheaper deals, where you can potentially develop them in your system to eventually be rotation players. You're not signed. This is why the super team stuff doesn't really fit anymore, because like people rather would have like the long term, because you can send these like second round picks for like 4-year deals worth like 1 point something million, like 2 million max.
Yeah.
And they can take you like far. Imagine people like, Caleb Martin like coming out as a second round pick. I mean, he was an undrafted guy, but for example, like EJ Liddell, right? Just like as an example, it's like someone who used to play for the Pelicans.
Yes, that's
I mean,
a
he had
great
an injury,
example.
like as someone who's like he's still on the deal. He's a member of the Hawks. He has that ability, but he had an injury his first season. He's still under contract for the next 3 years. Imagine he gets into that position, and then past that, you can have him in the restricted free agency. There's just a lot more long-term effects with getting these second round picks, getting these guys instead of like testing the second apron. Like it's really complicated, and there's a chance that people might lose draft picks and all that, and we haven't seen the full effect of it until like we'll actually see it. But at the same time, like there's just a different way of team building right now, and this is why like some guys are getting left in the dust. We talked about some of like our guys that are even like missing out right now. Gary Trent Jr. This guy was expecting $20 million a year from the Toronto Raptors. In this market, nah, bro, not in this market. Tyus Jones, one of our boys. They're like, it's for me. It's again, maybe it stems like further away from the 3D market. It's more just like the way team building is gonna work now, and this is why I have like this is why you see. And I'm gonna talk about my loser after this. It's like you're gonna see some teams start to crumble.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make a really great point that maybe it's not just singling out the 3-and-D wing market, but I think rotation, like real rotational fit guys, got affected. And a lot of people were saying this on podcasts that the real reason why a lot of these like solid rotational players that like would fit really well on like postseason caliber teams either got lowballed or still kind of out there on the free agency market. You mentioned Tyus. Lonnie Walker is still another guy that's actually kind of sitting out, floating about as well, that I think would be really good on like a playoff team. They're sitting around still because these teams have become a lot more timid about throwing certain numbers out there because they're trying to keep their books dry in a situation where they're kind of fearful of an invisible line that hasn't really like enacted any real version of like punishment yet. Like we haven't seen it. It's kind of like the second apron is acting as like this big boogeyman myth that we haven't seen the impact of, but everybody knows is lurking around the corner.
100%. But yeah, I think this expands further than that, and this actually leads me perfectly into my second to the next loser here, and that is what these aging super teams from like days. I hate to say like 2020 and 2021 are days of yore, but at this point, like they're slowly but surely drifting away into a little bit of obscurity. Because when I talk about these teams, I'm talking about the Lakers, I'm talking about the Miami Heat, and I'm talking about the LA Clippers, where you have these mid-30s to 40-year-old superstar players who you gave massive money to, and either you're just losing out on so many of your role players, a lot of Heat with Caleb Moore and all that, Clippers, Paul George, and some other guys as well.
Yeah.
Lakers, they've done nothing besides draft LeBron's kid and a rookie 3-point shooter. Like they just have no wiggle room anymore. And all their like past like things like all of their past moves that they made in terms of getting like these guys money early is now affecting them once this new second apron thing hits. And now they're, again, like you mentioned before, teams are scared of it. People don't know like what the true repercussions are going to be of it because they don't want to even test it. But they have to like pull back. And these are guys where like, oh, if you're a free agent, you want to be on the Clippers, you want to be on the Lakers. What's happening now? No one's going there to seek other opportunities, to seek more stabilized franchises. And now these guys are kind of like left in the dust. Like, are we even contenders anymore? I feel like out of all these teams at this point, like weirdly enough, like, do I trust the Lakers the most out of this? Because I feel like they've like missed out on like the Clippers and the Heat have missed out on so much. I'm not sure, but I would say that like these like aging like star teams are like kind of being like left in the dust here.
No, I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, if we go down the list, the Clippers are dealing with the backlash now of the way the Paul George situation was handled. And if you listen to Paul George's podcast on the situation, it actually makes them look a lot worse in terms of their business malpractice, may I say, in terms of how they decided to deal with a superstar that clearly had all of the leverage. And I think they tried to overutilize well, he's a kid from Palmdale, so he'll definitely want to play with us long, like to the point of wanting to return to LA on a discount, not realizing that not only did Paul George have all the leverage as a unrestricted free agent, but the fact that the Philadelphia 76ers A had a better winning situation and B had the real money to throw him a real max.
Yeah.
So the Clippers completely downplayed the situation in a way that now lost them their second best player. The Miami Heat don't really have very much to show for themselves this offseason. And the Lakers, as you mentioned beforehand, have struck out to the point that LeBron James said he would take a pay cut for a handful of players. He gave us a pretty decent list. And everybody that was on his list, they all changed teams. They're just not wearing purple and gold now.
I'm looking at the Lakers fancy moves, and all I see is a departing Torian Prince. That's it. That's all they've done.
TV, I'll put it this way. Here's the funny thing about these former contenders, as you mentioned. It's really funny when you talk about a contending team in a context outside of contending. When we talk about the Clippers, we're worried about the fact that Kawhi Leonard just got replaced by Derek White for the U.S. Olympics team because we all knew he wasn't going to stick around for Paris. We all knew. We were just waiting for the time when he would bow out.
I was surprised when he was in.
Man, me and you both. The Miami Heat, everybody is more interested about whether or not Bam Adebayo and Asia Wilson are together or not. With the Lakers, the biggest story is around Connect 4, Dalton Connect, and LeBron James' son, Bronny James, who was 2 of 9 in his first Summer League game, and now I think is going to miss some time due to injury.
Is he playing? I don't even know if he's playing yet into tonight or whatever.
From my understanding, I don't believe so. So
I mean, I saw ESPN highlight his stat line of 3-3-3, 4-4. So I don't know how far that's gonna go.
Look, man, you know that these contenders are really out of their element when the conversations that are being had on talking shows are about everything but them being propped up as championship contenders. We all know ESPN loves any chance possible to prop up the Lakers or prop up the Clippers or, prop up a team like Miami as like teams that like you got to be on the lookout for and you have to really consider them as a contender every single year. That's not the conversations we're having about them this year. And now, specifically, when you look at the West with the Clippers and the Lakers, them going down, it really hurts them when you look at the teams in the West that are only going to go up. Remember, you mentioned the Spurs earlier, but what about Memphis? What about Sacramento? What about Golden State, who was actually able to retool their team after losing out on Klay Thompson and are in real conversations going after Lauri Markkanen right now? What about those teams? You know what I mean? Like the Clippers and Lakers falling back like this, they're not falling back in a situation where there's still a safety net. This is going to be a hard conference to get through.
Yeah, and think about these markets, bro. These are the markets people are like, everyone's going to want to sign here. It's freaking Miami and Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Where is that interest now? Like, where is it? Like, they're now like the Heat. I'm comfortable saying that they're going to be playing contenders. I'm comfortable to say they're going to be in that sort of realm, the 7-10. Clippers, Lakers, they're probably, with how deep the West is right now, they're probably going to be sitting in the 7-10 spots as well. So it's just a real like change of course, especially earlier on in the decade when you have the Heat making 2 finals. You had the Clippers saying, "Man, we got Kawhi and Paul George. We're about to run the world going into this new arena." We have the Lakers winning a championship, and now we're sitting in 2024, 2025 with them as play-in contenders. Just a crazy fall from grace.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting 2024-25 season just with these three teams alone because, like, how long is Kawhi going to be a Clipper? What the hell is
How long is
going
he
on
gonna
with Jimmy
play?
Butler? How much? Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
Good question. How much is he going to play next year? Is this going to turn into the James Harden show all over again? We've
Ooh.
seen that movie twice, Brooklyn and Philly, and he
And he's
found his
older
way
now.
out pretty
And he
quickly.
did. Yeah. So,
So the Miami Heat, we've given them the benefit of the doubt, time and time again. But can we really do it for this version of the Heat? I don't think so. And TV, since that 2020 Lakers bubble championship, this might be the worst Lakers roster we've seen the entire time, and they wiggled out of some BS many a times. But this job this year,
right.
atrocious. We're talking about their best offseason signing being JJ Redick, the head coach. And that
Right.
boy can't dribble a basketball for you this time around, which means that this team did not get much better because the X's and O's are only going to save them but so much during the regular season, let alone if they somehow make the playoffs.
100%, man. Yeah, just these teams just kind of being quietly, just getting worse year by year, and it's like kind of like, you know, they built themselves to be contenders. Jimmy Butler might leave next year by all reports for the Miami Heat. Where do
Yeah.
they go next? Because it's like this, like we said, the offseason's finally settling down. What moves is there to make for them? We'll have to wait and see. Will they still be contenders? We have to wait to see how next season plays out. Jay, let's go back to the positive note. Let's go back to one of your other winners. Who do you got?
I got the Washington Wizards.
Yeah.
Super biased as a guy that is local to this team, but I just really loved what they did. We talked about this during the draft episode that obviously their first move to move off Denny Avdia was not necessarily one that was expected. Some actually viewed Denny Avdia as the team's best player in terms of as a future guy to build with. But he also probably had the best trade value of anybody on the team, considering Tyus was not locked up, and we don't necessarily know the value of a Kyle Kuzma on the market right now. Shoot, I think that's half the reason he's still on the team. But what they were able to do with getting an Alex Sarr, getting one of the guys that I thought was, or one of the guys that I viewed as like my favorite prospect of the entire draft, Carlton Carrington, aka Bub Carrington, Keyshawn George later in the late 20s as a 6'5", like shooting wing, and even Dylan Jones, even who they were able to pick up from the or I guess they sent him to the Thunder, but like the three main guys that they got, Keyshawn George, Bub Carrington, Alex Sarr, they get Jonas Valanciunas. Like, I just love what they're doing. I love what they're doing because they've went all into this young phase of their roster. I like the fact that now this team feels a little bit more spread out. They were really wing happy at first, and now it seems like this team is like slowly starting to like spread itself out. And I just think they're going to, as one of the bad teams in the East, I think they're still going to be a really fun young team to watch. I think they're going to be not necessarily like Charlotte Hornets esque, but I think there's gonna be nights where they're gonna be the best thing on League Pass. I do.
Yeah. I mean, like, it can't get much worse than last year, right? Last year was a
Yeah.
freaking disaster. And honestly, there's nowhere to go but up if you're Washington. And you finally got, you got your defensive anchor in Alex Sarr. You're getting some more veteran players. The only move I didn't like is when they traded Denny Avdia. That's the only thing, especially because of how much of a
Yeah.
contributor he was last year. Next up, you mean hopefully you could potentially move out Kyle Kuzma, but at the same time, like I think this team is like again fit the direction. They got the number 2 overall pick, arguably the best prospect in the draft by many accounts, and I
Hmm.
think this team is just like as part of a rebuilding team is finally like shaping itself out. Last year was like, okay, this team's a mess. We're just trying to kind of just get through it as we can, and hopefully we can do something moving forward. Maybe we find some gold in Jordan Poole. That clearly wasn't the case. This team was an absolute disaster. Not a fun team to watch at all. But this is why people think that tanking is, why tanking is the move in terms of, sacrificing 1 year and then that's where you start building. It's just the way to rebuild. They're starting to fill out some pieces now. Again, are they going to be in playing contention? No, but they're gonna have these guys grow another year with the team. They have their coach settled now. It's just trending in the right direction, and you just like to see that, especially with a young rebuilding team who was in one of the worst situations before with the freaking John Wall and Bradley Beal contract, and now you kind of see, what this team is like. In a couple of years, you could see them actually like doing something really good.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that Michael Winger has come in for Washington and given the fan base the beginning of a young core that I think we can get behind. You know what I mean? When you really think about like the team that they have, with Bilal Coulibaly being a guy that I feel like showed us real like promise last year. And the fact that there's still leverage with like a Kyle Kuzma or a Corey Kispert is still on this team. Like, again, the draft picks with bringing in an Alex Sarr. Um, Malcolm Brogdon, I think, is still going to have some interesting value. Like, there's a lot of different things. There's a lot of machinations of this team where we've gotten significantly younger, have a lot of decent young, like prospects to look into, a lot of strong potential draft picks down the line, and a handful of different guys that we can get off of. We keep mentioning Kyle, but there's also Malcolm. I mean, who knows? Maybe Jordan Poole's a guy that goes on the block after the fact that they were able to get Bub Carrington at like 14. Like, maybe he's a guy we could try to reshop. Who knows?
They have a bunch of guys where they can dangle a lot of bait for a lot of contenders.
Yeah.
Like a lot of bait, just a lot of little baits. Like, you might just need that fifth guy in your starting lineup. Here's a Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah.
Oh, you need a spark plug off the bench. Here's Jordan Poole. They have a lot of good bait. They have a lot of good bait that mixed in with the young guys, they can actually get some good value back for like the older players as well.
Yeah, definitely a lot of optimism around the Wizards. And they're not one of the they're not in the category of biggest winners the way like Philadelphia is, but I think for a young organization, I think they had a very strong offseason. And this is the first time I've felt this enthusiastic about a Washington Wizards offseason in quite a long time, because after throwing bad money after bad money for so long, this feels like the first time that they've kind of gotten the powder dry and are now positioned to kind of just have a young team that guys can get behind, like the fan base can get behind.
Yeah, and that's just completely different vibes from what they got last year. Again, one of the most unwatchable teams at times in the league. So they're trading in the right direction. They're doing some good things over there in Washington.
Yeah.
My final winner here, Jay, and we talked about this beforehand. Let's shout out the state of New York.
Yeah.
Firstly, we got to talk about the Knicks first.
Got to.
Bringing back OG Anunoby.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing in Mikal Bridges.
Yes.
Sure, they lost Isaiah Hartenstein. That's the tough part. I know that's tough. But bringing back Jalen Brunson on a 4-year, $156 million deal, and we talked about this last episode, he could have been like the first casualty, the first beneficiary of the new CBA TV agreement, the whole TV agreement. He could have got the bag. The
bag TV. Golly.
What was the thing? They say $113 million on Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, it was. I think it was like $113 to $114 million pay cut. I couldn't believe it.
I can't believe
$113 million pay cut. Yeah.
I think, I don't know if you remember that conversation we had, but we're like, yo, next season when this hits, Jalen Brunson's about to get paid.
Yeah.
We talked about, and he decided to take the pay cut now, just so he can like keep this team. Yo, they have this team all set up. The only thing I don't like about this team is the backup center position, and they still have a chance to bring back Precious. Yeah. I don't trust Jericho Sims, and hopefully Mitchell Robinson stays healthy. But this team as a whole, we talked about the 76ers being contenders out east. This Knicks team is pretty damn good. And compared to the Philadelphia 76ers, if you go in a one-on-one matchup with the Celtics, these guys have the bodies to throw at the Celtic stars. Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby on the perimeter, People have been freaking criticizing Mikal Bridges over the last couple of years because of his the way he fell off defensively. He was the number one option in Brooklyn. Let him be. Now that he's back to the number 3 option, we're gonna see freaking Phoenix Suns Mikal, where he's consistent first team all defense every single year.
Yeah.
This Knicks team is insane. The only thing stopping them is literally just injuries, and hopefully we don't have the case this year like we did last year.
Yeah.
That team is really good. I think that they are absolute winners of this weekend. But then the Brooklyn Nets, they're the ones who freaking got rid of Mikal Bridges.
Mm-hmm.
But they re-signed Nicholas Claxton, honestly on a team-friendly deal, 4 years, $100 million. They got five first-round picks in exchange for Mikal Bridges, and they could possibly trade Bojan Bogdanovic. Don't forget that. There's a chance they can trade Bojan Bogdanovic at this point in the offseason or in the regular season. Again, one of those contender bait players where he might be the missing piece for you to win a championship. But not just that. People don't talk about this trade enough, but they made a deal with the Houston Rockets, and I'm not going to go into details because that still confuses me. But what I do know is that they got this year's pick back from them, unprotected, and they got next year's.
Yes.
So they can tank and be like, you know what? We have a chance at Cooper Flag. We can bring him to the system, and then the rebuild right back into place.
Yep.
They have single-handedly in one offseason revived the rebuild. We thought it was okay, they have no draft picks left. They're going to be kind of one of those mid-teams for 5 years because there's just no way they're going to be able to. There's no need for them to tank. But instead, they got back the pieces for the next 2 years so they can start tanking now, and then they have something to fall back on afterwards. Who's the number one guy? Is it freaking Ken Thomas? I'm not sure. Is he going to be the number one guy going forward? Probably not. But they have a direction, and now the suffering is not going to be as bad because you have a chance at a top pick. The state of New York did really well this offseason, whether it's trying to be contenders in the New York Knicks or just going with the full-out tank, which is the Brooklyn Nets. And both teams came out on the other side looking very, very good.
No, you're 100% right. Two totally different directions, but definitely positive outcomes for both teams. I'll start with the New York Knicks same way as you did. TV, there's a world where there's going to be a defensive lineup that includes OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, and Josh Hart on the perimeter. Good luck getting it past half court. If they decide to pressure the ball on a night-to-night basis, it's going to be hard to score points on this team.
And if you get past them, good luck on trying to score Mitchell Robinson in the paint who's going to freaking block that stuff.
Yeah, if Mitch Rob can be healthy, there are machinations of this team where this squad could be easily a top 5 defensive unit in the NBA for the entirety of the regular season. They have some real lineup flexibility that not too many teams have the real opportunity to even play around with. And like you mentioned beforehand, one of the things that I thought was super interesting about this offseason for the Knicks in general was just, I think they kind of acquired this depth almost as a response to the way they exited the postseason. One of the biggest thing that hurt the Knicks was that although they were still kind of very talented in their 1 through 8, they just weren't deep enough to get past that, right?
They have a bunch of great NBA role players that fill out an 8-man rotation.
They're at the point now where and again, everybody makes the joke of it's Mikal Bridges versus the Tom Thibodeau curse at this point in terms of which one can hold up, right? Yeah. But this is a team that I think next year, if they can just be healthy, that team's just going to be insane. And then Brooklyn, as you mentioned beforehand, they still have Bojan, Dorian Finney-Smith on this team, Cam Johnson, Ben Simmons as an expiring contract. They have a handful of guys that they can come up off of to kind of make the Trevor Trove even deeper than it already is. But TV, you mentioned it beforehand, and it's really important. It's not just that they got their picks back. It's the picks they got back from Houston. They get back 2025 unprotected, 2026 unprotected. Now they're in the run for Cooper Flag, who's getting a lot of buzz as a part of the USA Select team so far right now.
Him not even being drafted is getting 2,000 times more coverage than Zachary Ricochet.
Dude. Cooper Flag, AJ DeBonza, Ace Bailey, no matter where Brooklyn lands, if they can, as long as they're in the top 5, like this class is pretty solid. And guess what? The Boozer twins are down the line in 2026 and so on and so forth. Like the next couple of drafts, kind of interesting. Kind of interesting. And the Nets are basically getting their picks back when it seems like the draft cycle is back to like the star-studded groups that a lot of people usually look forward to. So the Nets, I think they realized that being the plucky Nets, being still interesting, but trying to put themselves together, you can only catch lightning in a bottle once. It's kind of a hard thing to duplicate. And so they decided to go about this the traditional route of getting some of their picks back, getting a lot of possible bites at the apple in the draft. And now they're going to be a terrible team to watch next year. But boy, is it going to be nice to see where they land at the top of next year's draft.
Yeah, both teams just came out like super, super good. And fans got to be happy from both ends of what they're going to see. I'm so excited to see this next team next year again. And the fact that you're probably going to have like a situation. Remember, Julius Randle didn't play last year at all in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And whether he stays on the roster or ends up being a trade chip to potentially get like that center depth that you need, maybe get like, instead of maybe turning him into like 2 or 3 like really good role players, then like, I mean, he's still a really good player anyway. I mean, we caught him a lot on this podcast, but this guy's a freaking All NBA like level, has been an NBA level player and All NBA level player in his career. So there's a lot of directions, and even though they gave away 5 first-round picks, they didn't give up the whole like treasure trove of like X. This is not the end for them. So yeah, both teams are looking really, really good, and it's just like you just got to be happy for it. One, if you're like wanting to watch the Knicks as like just a fan of the NBA in general, but even if you're a fan of both of these teams, if you're gonna love it if you're the Knicks, you're gonna love it if you're the Nets, because even though it's gonna be bad, there's gonna be the method to the madness, as some people may say. So yeah, good for the state of New York. Jay, moving on to the last part, the last losers that you got. Who do you have?
The last loser it's only right. It's as much as I want to pick on the Denver Nuggets and their offseason, I'm going with my Chicago Bulls. What the TV? What is this?
I'm gonna step back. Do your thing, bro. Do your
All
thing.
right, man. All right. Let me get situated, man. Okay, look. This is why the Chicago Bulls continue to set the fan base ablaze. Is because it started with Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey straight up. Everybody and their mama, even analysts themselves on podcasts admitted, we're going to wait for the remaining details because obviously there's no way this is a 1-for-1 trade. No, but it was. But it was. And not only did you acquire Josh Giddey, but you acquired a Josh Giddey who now next season you're going to have to pay. So thank you. We're going to have to now give him a rookie contract extension, and he's probably going to want a lucrative amount as a guy who's a former lottery pick. We know that because we paid an unproven Patrick Williams this year, which means we're probably going to actually give Josh Giddey the bag. Thanks for signing up for that. But then it trickles down further. You trade DeMar DeRozan, an all-star player, in a 3-team trade that involves the Spurs and the Sacramento Kings. And somehow in the deal, you, the Chicago Bulls, get the worst return of the entire trade. You get Chris Duarte, who's been passed around from the Kings to the Pacers, now to the Bulls, as a guy who's going to be our next Denzel Valentine, and 2 second-round picks. Second-round picks. But TV, it gets worse. News drops that part of the ideology around getting the 2 second-round picks in that trade was to then pair those second-round picks with Zach LaVine to make him easier to trade because they want to trade him before the season starts. But the hype around his trade value has significantly diminished to the point that we have to attach stuff to Zach LaVine, a former all-star guard. We have to attach second-round picks to him just to trade him for what we hope is neutral value at best.
It's not going to be neutral value. I'm telling you right now.
It's not going to be neutral value, but that's what we're praying for. But TV, you thought it was over, but it's not. Guess what, TV? Nikola Vucevic, a $20 million a year center who was getting outplayed by Andre Drummond last year, is still on the team. We brought in Jalen Smith, who I like, a former guy from Maryland. Shout out Terrapins. But we're going to see him play on the floor as an unproven stretch five. We'll see what he does. You look at this team now, you still have Nikola Vucevic. Lonzo Ball is apparently either going to get bought out or is on the trade market. What can you possibly get for a Lonzo Ball that hasn't played in 2.5 years? I have no clue.
Yeah.
And the Bulls, they're trying to stealth tank. They're trying to pay Reinsdorf no mind by trying their best to tank, going with the hometown Chicago kid and Montas Buzelis. But you can't fool me, Chicago Bulls. Even in the midst of tanking, you found a way. Sorry for my child-friendly listeners. You still found a way to fuck this up. Because even in the form of a rebuild, we have no idea where the hell we're going. TV, we've said this on the podcast a million times before. And the Chicago Bulls, funny enough, have been the butt of this joke more than anything. But man, does it feel good when you see a team pick a direction. You remember when Orlando picked a direction? Oh man, they have Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero, who just had the series of their lives before just barely falling out in a Game 7 against the Cleveland Cavaliers. You remember when your Toronto Raptors finally chose a direction? Oh yeah, they just have a former, rookie of the year in Scotty Barnes and are slowly but surely putting together a young core that has Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett and now, a handful of really solid players that just make you kind of feel good about where they're headed. Oh, you remember those Washington Wizards I just brought up earlier in the episode who are coming off of some of the worst contracts in NBA history that involved John Wall and Bradley Beal? Two of the worst contracts we've ever seen signed in NBA history. And now they have a foundation with a million different opportunities for themselves to get better. Remember the Brooklyn Nets we just talked about not even 5 minutes ago? Who, after the Kevin Durant trade and the Mikal Bridges trade, now are up like 9 future first and or second round picks after being a team that had nothing to its name just a season or two ago? Yeah, those teams. And then you have the Bulls, who have to put 2 second-round picks next to Zach LaVine just to trade him. Oh man, TV.
Hey, look, man. You talked about it all you need to. But I will say this, Jay. You picked a direction. Is the aftermath brutal? Yes. The aftermath is brutal, but you picked a direction. And you just kind of have to let things fall in place. That's all you kind of have to do. So obviously, some teams have done it better than you guys, but at the same time, you guys picked a direction. It's better than nothing.
Yeah, you're definitely right. It's better. It's definitely better than nothing. And I'm actually more for a youth movement compared to what the road it seemed we were headed. We still need a couple more moves to truly lead into the youth movement. Get rid of Nikola. Obviously, move off of Zach and figure out what to do with Lonzo. But this was definitely a mismanaged opportunity. Not trading Alex Caruso for the 2 possible first-round picks that was offered way back when during the trade deadline conversations during earlier in the season. Allowing DeMar DeRozan to even get in free agency in order for a sign and trade to happen. Letting the fallout with Zach LaVine get this bad. The original sin of trading for Nikola Vucevic in the first place, it's definitely led the Chicago Bulls down a path that, man, only a Bulls fan can love, man. Because only a Bulls fan can still, support the United Center under these circumstances. Because Jesus Christ, this is malpractice at a level that even Detroit Pistons fans are allowed to laugh at. Good God.
Yeah, it's a tough look, but after all that, all I can say is at least there's a direction. That's the biggest thing I can take away from it.
Yeah.
Teams that need to choose a direction chose a direction. And now we can move forward with what needs to be done in a rebuild, not just this meddling thing. And to think, all of this was done because of one half of the season where you guys were near the top of the conference. All of this.
Oh, man. It's hard out here, man. It's hard out here.
It's tough, but hey, look, it comes with something, man. At least there's a direction. I'm just happy with that. But yeah,
Yeah.
the last thing I'm gonna do here, is for the loser of this draft of this offseason is the Sacramento Kings, and I'll go through them quickly. I think that the Kings missed out on a real opportunity to capitalize after like 2 seasons ago of like the team that they had, because they had De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, Keegan Murray, and Sabonis, and they had some moves to kind of like get people around, but instead you give away 2 rotation pieces and a second round pick for probably the Raptors' worst player last year in Jalen McDaniels. You get another non-shooter. Now you have 3 stars that are non-shooters by bringing in DeMar DeRozan. I love the guy. We both love the guy, but is he a real fit on this Kings team? Like it's questionable. And you have to give away Harrison Barnes in the process still. I just look at this roster up and down, and I think that you're moving, but you're not moving from here forward. You're moving from here to the left. You're moving from here to the right. You're like sidestepping every single season when you haven't made the playoffs in like 18 years. The minute you do, that is the chance for you to move forward, especially when you have 2 NBA like all-star / potential all-NBA caliber guys, and you're not doing so. DeMar DeRozan raises your floor. Maybe you guys are a 7-6 seed. Is there a chance after that? I'm not sure, but I just don't. I just think that the Kings are missing out on a golden opportunity here. No pun intended, but it's like I just feel like the Kings are kind of just moving left and right instead of like moving forward when they finally have a chance to, like when they finally have like a 2-star duel to them to like potentially make it like further into the playoffs.
I mean, I think you're right to an extent. I mean, I think that at the end of the day, for such a low cost, to be able to upgrade from Harrison Barnes to DeMar DeRozan actually was a solid move in practice. Now, obviously, the fit is a little tricky. I do think them being able to bring back Malik Monk was also a very positive signing for them. But I agree with you in the sense of them moving kind of more so slightly to the left than moving forward. And you have to also think about the way this Western Conference is like kind of laid out. Like, getting better is the only way to truly survive in the West.
Yes.
Because we already discussed it with like the 2 teams in like LA, for example, with the Clippers and the Lakers. A slide back in the East might just put you as you mentioned with the Heat, for example. A slide back in the East might make you a play-in team, but at least we have confidence that you have a real chance at the postseason. A setback in the West could mess around and put you as one of the teams that's supposed to be picking in the lottery if you have your picks, not the Clippers. But you know what I mean? So it's one of those things where for the Kings, you just wonder if they just have a little bit too much faith in what they already have after the few seasons of success they've already kind of been able to like milk out of this duo.
Success. That's the thing.
And I think that's a great way to phrase it, is like success with asterisks next to it, because it's kind of like it's success as a Kings franchise that hasn't made the postseason in 20 years and then made the postseason for the first time a season ago, right? But how do you build a sustainable perennial postseason team is not by resting your laurels and kind of just like staying what got you to the dance, unless you were just that good to the point that the bar is set so high. But I mean, the difference between the year they made the postseason and last year, there's so much of a gap in between that I don't think you can take enough from it to warrant just getting slightly better, if that.
I mean, 100%. I 100% agree with that. But we clowned the Hawks for kind of staying put with their team after making it to the conference finals, right? Because they're like, you know what, this team, we can just run it back and they'll be good. With the Sacramento Kings, they didn't even get out the first round, and they think that this team is like enough to kind of take them forward. They turned down big offers and traded like for potential like 3rd-star opportunities for trading away Keegan Murray, for getting potentially getting a Pascal Siakam, who's like already like a top 25 player in the league. They've gave up those opportunities because they think this team is good enough. When the West keeps going forward and they're staying pattern, there's gonna be people passing by you in the race. And I think that again, these two past off seasons have shown more left to right movement than moving forward, and that's just not gonna cut it.
Yeah, the Kings, I loved them, 2 seasons ago, and they proved me right. Thank goodness. But I think the one thing they really are going to need to pay attention to is the way a lot of these self-sustaining teams that like have just been able to be in the postseason year after year have been able to do so. And it's not by like it's not by resting on your laurels. It is by getting better every offseason, even if it is incrementally. And incrementally still means taking a legitimate step or two forward. Acquiring DeMar DeRozan when factoring in his fit with this team feels more like a half step forward at best. Yeah, than an actual like full step towards where I think they want to be. And so, I mean, don't get me wrong. Kings fans in the comments will say, well, look, we're just trying to get back to the playoffs because being able to experience that 2 years ago was monumental for the franchise considering the circumstances. And I totally understand that. But that flash in the pan thinking is what keeps teams bad. That's how you go from having that outlier season to then falling off the face of the earth. You want a perfect example? What's going on with the Atlanta Hawks right now? They rested on their laurels after making the ECF, thinking that they had went through a gauntlet, and they didn't. Thought they could run that team back. Then later on, got DeJounte Murray thinking they just needed a small incremental upgrade. And now DeJounte Murray's not on the team. Sadiq Bey is not on the team after they acquired him in a later trade from the Pistons. Guess their first round pick or their late round pick and AJ Griffin isn't even on the team anymore. There's not as much belief in DeAndre Hunter. Are we finally gonna put any kind of real like belief in the Onyeka Okongwu, or are we gonna just keep playing Clint Capella for God's sake?
The fact he's still on that team is ridiculous.
The fact that Trae Young was on the trade block tells you that this team is far from where they were seasons ago in the ECF to where they are now. And I'm saying that the Kings might be a watered down version of that, which goes to tell you that the bar for them is a lot lower than I think they're giving credit. And I think they really need to kind of like wake up and get some smelling salts around before they mess around and fall back into
obscurity.
Yeah.
And you don't want to waste a De'Aaron Fox career like that, or how good Domantas Sabonis has been this past few years. So
there you
go. They definitely got to like step it up. But those are our winners and losers of the offseason so far. We might like look back at this even further in a month or two. But but right now, as of right now, those are our winners and losers. Let us know down below what you guys think. Who are some of your biggest winners and losers that we didn't even mention on this pod? I'd like to hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to the next segment of the draft, Jay. And it's time for the NBA draft. And for this draft, we're not doing our typical, serpentine style, try to build the best team possible. We will, in a sense. But because Summer League is tipping off as we are recording, I just saw that the Cavs got absolutely destroyed by the freaking Orlando Magic. Shout out to Anthony Black and Jet Howard. But, Jay, for today's draft, we're going to go back and forth. And we're going to try and draft the best Summer League team. Now, this is not the NBA season. This is not the finals. This is Summer League. We're talking about the guys that had a flash in the pan, sort of run for their Summer League team. We thought, wow, these guys are going to be amazing in the NBA. And they kind of, middled out a little bit. Sometimes, sometimes they start out to be solid players or not. But some guys who had legendary, memorable Summer League runs. And we're going to try and draft those other teams today. Jay, how do you feel about this draft?
This one's interesting because depending on how you view this, you can go a lot of different routes. You could go with the G League legend who showed off in his summer league debut with a chance to possibly secure a spot on the big man team. You could think of a couple of guys that are household names that we've gotten kind of familiar with over the last couple of years that balled out in summer league, but then when we saw them during the regular season, maybe you saw flashes of what we saw during summer league, but they never really got to truly actualize their potential. And then you have the dudes that are just summer league demons. These are the guys that when summertime comes around, they look like they're hooping next to guys in the YMCA and they're the best guy on the floor. But when it comes time to play real minutes, they're at the end of the bench. So, I mean, we can have some real fun with this one. I don't think there's gonna be any guys that are like all-stars on these teams that we're putting together, but we're putting together summer league all-stars, which makes it that much more fun.
100%. And again, we're just gonna go back and forth this one. No need to do a serpentine style over here. So we're just gonna run it through just one by one. And Jay, you get the first overall pick. Who's your first overall pick in this summer league draft?
Yeah, man. I'm gonna actually go back literally just only a couple of seasons ago. You remember when we were thinking that Davion Mitchell was gonna be the best defensive guard since Gary Payton? Off night himself.
That's where he got the nickname. That summer league run is where he got the nickname.
Come on, man. Mr. Off Night himself. Summer League was a place where he was putting guys in absolute jail. And it was making it where it seemed like dudes were possibly losing a chance at making the big boy roster just simply by getting the ball stolen by one Davion Mitchell. He had everybody in the league believing that this was going to be one of the best defensive guards in the NBA. And not to say that he doesn't have an opportunity to do it, but he's not doing it in the Kings jersey. We've already established that much.
Yes.
And that tells you a lot considering the fact that some people were a little skeptical about him coming out of Baylor, considering he was an older rookie at 22 years old, undersized at 6 foot. And of course, he had a shooting outlier in that last year at Baylor, shooting like a very high three-point percentage, but it was really his only season shooting at that high of a clip. And all the worries about that stuff, once it came time to play on the big stage with the NBA, he showed himself out a couple of times in the early stages of his rookie year. But flash in the pan for sure. And
yeah,
the G League and Summer League will love him forever.
Yes, hopefully he actually kind of turns his career around for my Toronto Raptors. Again, just like we didn't have to give up much to get him, so hopefully we can like find some kind of like what's it called? Like a what's it called? Something in a rough, a diamond in a rough there, and Donovan and Davion Mitchell. So that's a really good pick there. Jay, for my first pick here, I'm going to take you back to the most legendary summer league team of all time, and that is the 2017-2018 Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go point guard for point guard with you here. I'm going to go with the freaking MVP of that summer league, Lonzo Ball.
Yeah.
Because this was the summer league where people were like, oh, shoot, maybe the hype is real. Maybe this is like LeVar was right. Maybe this guy's going to be the best point guard in the league. This man averaged during his summer league run 16 points a game, almost 10 assists, almost 8 rebounds per game, and 2.5 steals. They won the championship, and Lonzo Ball was like the best player we've seen in like summer league during that year. Like, he was absolutely insane. And sure, in the NBA, he's had some like flashes in the pan and all that, but the injury really derailed his career. But man, there was a time where we thought, yo, the Lonzo Ball hype could be real, and this summer league really fed into that narrative.
Yeah, Lonzo was definitely on my short list of guys I wanted to be able to grab because Summer League was real validation for him after being drafted to the Lakers out of UCLA with the background of the LeVar Ball, Magic Johnson stuff taking place. And Summer League was going to be a really important stage for him because despite it being a lower level, there was going to be some real reaction on whether or not he played well. And the fact that he balled out with that team that had Josh Hart and Kyle Kuzma and Vander Blue, if you remember him as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
That team was that for a summer league team, they were built different. And the fact that they were able to go as far as they went, the fact that he was able to win summer league MVP like that, it gave Lakers fans something to root for, considering a lot were a little bit weary about Lonzo, considering it felt like he had more of a hype train than a real talent pool coming out of UCLA. We knew he was good. And of course, I was a huge Lonzo Ball fan coming back, just even dated back to early high school. But we understand marketing push helps a lot, and sometimes when it
He
comes to
had
things like
national
draft.
media at those games, bro. He had freaking national media at those games, and he was
Yeah.
delivering, bro. But yeah, definitely one of those like summer league legends. Jay, who do you have as your second overall pick?
TV, I'm going to go to a name that I'm sure nobody knows, but for some godforsaken reason, me and you did. And both of us acknowledged him not even 30 seconds into going on Real GM's page. Shout out to them because they helped a lot in terms of being able to build out this draft for us. TV, you remember Josh Selby? Hey, man. 2 years with the Memphis Grizzlies, but guess what? He only needed one good year of summer league to make him a legend in the hearts of many who love summer basketball. This man averaged a total of 4.2 points combined in his 2 regular seasons in the NBA with the Memphis Grizzlies. But guess what he did in his rookie season with the Memphis Grizzlies as part of summer league? The boy was averaging 24 points per game and was shooting 8 3-pointers a game where he was hitting 64% from beyond the arc. The man was an absolute demon. If he could have hit 64% from beyond the arc in the league, we would have thought that he was Clay and Steph combined with a build that only the Milwaukee Bucks and the Memphis Grizzlies could possibly like, because of course he was like, 6'2" and just throwing the ball up at the hoop. But yeah, Josh Selby, 2 years in the league, but made the most out of one really strong summer league run where he was insane. 2012, a different year. Shout out Jeremy Lamb as well. Crazy guy.
Yeah, but no, this guy was absolutely insane in summer league. Like he got so much buzz as second overall, second round pick, and people thought he can actually do some things for the Grizzlies going forward as kind of the backup to Mike Conley. This guy did nothing in the NBA.
Nope.
Absolutely nothing. But he had that one legendary summer league run, and you gotta respect it. So having him there, 100%, that was a great pull. Jay, I'm gonna go with another deep cut because this guy was like a lottery pick back in the day, but do people really remember him? Jay, Anthony Randolph, does that name ring a bell?
Yes, I remember his Denver Nugget days.
Bro, I was wondering, when I was rebuilding teams in 2K10, why this man had such high trade value. Wondering why. But man, his summer league stats were insane. I'm gonna go to his best year, which was with the Golden State Warriors 2009-2010. This is a sophomore season. 26 points per game, 9 rebounds on 60% from the field and 75% at the free throw line. This man was an absolute monster. In his 2 years in summer league, he was in his 12 games in the summer league, he averaged 22 points per game and 8 rebounds. He was insane. People thought that this guy was going to be back in the day when people loved, this power forward center, he has a mid-range jumper. We love that for him. Nowadays, people are like, if you don't have a 3-point shot, get the hell out of here. But at the same time, this guy felt like the next modern big man in the league. And this guy was nothing more than bad. Nothing more. He didn't have a long NBA career, but man, he tore it up in the summer league.
Yeah, that's another one of those summer league demons, kind of like in the Josh Selby arc of on that stage, you just look like a completely different guy compared to when you come up, to the main roster. And shout out to him, bro. At the end of the day, like I said, we will forever remember you as a summer league demon. But don't get me wrong. Again, I do remember the hilariously, like you mentioned before, the insane trade value he had as a guy that just I think had a high potential back in the 2K days.
Always high potential. Always high
Crazy.
Potential. Yeah. But yeah, Jay, you got your third overall pick.
So the next guy that I have, TV, we're going to kind of stick within that same vein of a do you remember? Do you remember Larry Sanders?
I love, he was one of my favorite role-playing centers back in the day. Like role
Man,
player type centers.
me and you both. Larry Sanders was one of those interesting guys that I remember playing like 2K12 and 2K13 and getting him as like a late round secondary big man to come off the bench. TV, let me just read you his summer league stats for his best year, which was 2010-2011. 14 points a game, not really that insane, but 8.4 rebounds, 1.4 steals, and here's the one that really stood out. 3.2 blocks per game. This dude looked like he was going to walk around and be a defensive menace. He was all right in Milwaukee, but defensive menace, not so much.
He is one of those players where you just gotta say, "Stay off the weed."
I'm glad you said it because I didn't want to be the one to have to do it to him.
He's just one of those guys. He was a really solid big man, by the way. He tried to make a little return like 4 years later, but clearly wasn't the same player. But shout out to Larry Sanders, one of like those role player centers back in the day that people really like. So that was a good pick over there. Jay, my next pick. I gotta go. This probably might be arguably the best player in the NBA that we have on this list. But how can we forget the Kyle Kuzma run?
Yeah, I was thinking about him.
And the reason I was hesitant of choosing him, and the reason I want to bring him up here, was for like a year and a half, people were like, man, this guy was a better pick than Jason Tatum. This guy was going to be a better player than Jason Tatum. This was a legit conversation. No joke over here. People were saying that Kyle Kuzma long term was going to be a better player than Jason Tatum. I mean, maybe 6 years later, NBA championship, multiple All-NBAs for Jason Tatum. Biggest contract in NBA history says otherwise. But there was like a year and a half where there was a bit of a conversation there for Kyle Kuzma. Yes. And that died pretty quickly, and now he's kind of meddling on the Wizards. But man, this guy had won finals MVP in the summer league, had an amazing run with that insane Lakers team. Like he had a freaking legendary summer league run capped off by the final performance. He's got to be on my team, especially for that narrative with Jason Tatum.
Yeah, remember there was even a time where during the rookie season, people were saying, did the Lakers get their best rookie later in that first round by getting Kyle Kuzma instead of, really putting the shine on Lonzo Ball when Lonzo started out the season struggling and Kyle Kuzma was kind of balling out? Many were wondering if Kyle Kuzma was the better rookie of the two. And I think that debate between those two in terms of who's had the better career is probably still leaning more in Kyle Kuzma's favor.
Yeah.
But at the same time, couple years back, there was a conversation that made it sound like that gap was much further than it is at the moment, which goes to tell you a lot considering Lonzo was taken number 2 overall.
Yes. But yeah, Kyle Kuzma, 22 points a game during that run, 6 rebounds, 48% from the three-point line on 7 attempts per game. Insane summer league stats from Kyle Kuzma. He has to have he's going to be a member of my team. Jay, what's your 4th pick?
TV, it's only been 2 seasons of it, but it's been 2 of the better summer league seasons we've seen in human history. I have to get Cam Thomas. Dude's averaged 27 points per game in both summer league runs. And this is the part that really threw me off, TV. Dude's taking opportunity at summer league to make sure he gets his shot up. Because my boy had 19 shot attempts per game. He said, look, I'm on center stage in the summertime, and I'm getting all the shots up. Because he has 19 field goal attempts. Guess how many assists he has? He is averaging 3.2 assists in the summer league. My boy is not looking to pass.
Bro, don't even worry. This is going to be the Nets this upcoming season with Cam Thomas.
Man. Sheesh. Shout out Cam Thomas, though, man. We know what he's capable of in the league in terms of being one of the more premier young scorers in the NBA. But, man, Summer League just hit different for Cam Thomas when it comes to getting buckets, bro. He was making people look silly in the NBA, too. But Summer League was a different movie, man. He's definitely a walking bucket. And in the Summer League, he was KD level unguardable.
Yes, no, yeah, 100%. That is a damn good pick with Cam Thomas. Jay, I like going current because these are the Summer Leagues I mostly remember. And you know what Summer League I remember? The Summer League of Kevin Knox.
Oh, Lord.
Kevin Knox had us thinking that he was going to be like a long-term piece for the New York Knicks. People were calling him for the Fortnite jacket, but he was shutting them up in summer league with his basketball skills, freaking averaging for the Knicks like 18 points a game, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. He was absolutely killer for the Knicks during those times in the summer league, and we thought that he was going to be like their future starting small forward. Got let go by the team, has been a journeyman ever since, and now he's struggling on the Golden State Warriors summer league team right now. This is the fall from grace that Kevin Knox has had. But yeah, that was the best moments of his career. Him being on the summer league is the absolute highlights, and he had us believing for a little bit as the 8th overall pick, and then that belief went away pretty quickly.
Yeah, Kevin Knox. I think we all had real belief in him. Then we saw Zion Williamson rip the ball from him, and things kind of got awkward from that
He
time.
lost all his aura from that one play.
Yeah, if anybody remembers that scene where the Hall of Fame players all touch the ball in Space Jam and then all of a sudden lose their basketball ability, yeah, that's the transaction that took place between Zion Williamson and Kevin Knox. Yeah, they both touched the ball and only one came out with all-star potential. So yikes. But that's just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah,
This last pick is going to be really interesting.
But yeah, Kevin Knox is going to be my pick there. Jay, your final pick. Who do you got?
This last pick can be anybody. It can really be anybody. I really want to go with a big because I don't have one. I don't really genuinely have one. You know what? We're going to do it. We're going to go back to one of the more recent. We're going to go to one of the more recent summer leagues. And he's not necessarily like a big in like the insane sense. But Brandon Clark during summer league was a fun watch, man.
He was. He definitely was.
He was a fun watch. I'm going to go with Brandon Clark. Nothing super duper insane, but he did average 14.6 points per game, almost 10 rebounds, 2 assists, almost 2 blocks a game, and it felt like every game of summer league he had at least like 5 highlights. The dude was literally jumping out the gym, and we knew that was like the one thing out of Gonzaga that really stood out because even though he was like a little bit of an older rookie, the dude's athleticism kind of like closed the gap.
I always remembered him, like, especially during that summer league, like, he's going to be an energy player. Like, I've heard that so many times from him. But yeah, he was really good in summer league.
Yeah.
Really good. Yeah, that's a good pick to end things off. My final pick here, Jay, I'm going to choose this guy because I also met him in real life the day he got traded away by the Toronto Raptors. But this guy had a crazy summer league performance. Jay, do you remember the name Jared Bayless?
I do. Another Memphis Grizzly.
Quick story again. I was out with my dad and my friend. It was like 1 a.m. and we got ice cream downtown somewhere here in Toronto. And Jared Bayless got traded to the Memphis Grizzlies. I saw this man eating ice cream at the same place we were at. I got a picture with him, and then my dad asked him, "So, how does it feel getting traded?"
Oh my God, TV, what the heck?
Yeah. So
what a bold question to ask.
What a bold question. I was like, no, that's not the right question to ask at that time. But yeah, it didn't make me and Jared Bayless. I still have a picture with him on my phone somewhere. But yeah, that one summer league he had with the Portland Trailblazers when he got drafted, 30 points per game, 5 rebounds. And if you want to talk about not passing the ball, you said that Cam Thomas is averaging like what, 2.5 assists per game?
Yeah.
Jared Bayless was averaging 1.25. This guy was like, the possession stops here. This is the OG Michael Porter Jr. This is a point guard. He's averaging 1.2.5 assists, but still 48% from the field, 43% from 3. This guy averaged 15 free throws per game.
Oh my God!
During the summer league run when he averaged 29 points. That's insane numbers. Shout out to Jared Bayless. I'm sorry that my dad had to ask you that on the day he got traded, but hey ho, I mean he had a okay NBA career, I guess.
Hilarious, man. Jared Bayless he was a microwave scorer. He was a really interesting player for a handful of teams. But I mean, again, this is what it comes down to when we talk about summer league all-stars, man. Sometimes not everybody shines on the big stage. It all depends,
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, that's my final pick. Jay, your summer league draft, your all-time starting league summer league draft. Who do you got?
Yeah, definitely not out here to win games, but I hope it jogs some people's memories at
Yeah.
least. But I guess we're gonna run Davion Mitchell at the 1, Cam Thomas at the 2, Josh Selby at the 3 at 6'2". Yikes.
Okay.
Brandon Clark at the 4 and Larry Sanders at the 5. Like I said, not
Hey.
here to win basketball games, but I hope I jog some memories in terms of guys that were summer league demons.
Yeah, that's all this draft was. For my team, I got Jared Bayless at the 1, Lonzo Ball at the 2, Kevin Knox at the 3, Kyle Kuzma at the 4, and Anthony Randolph running the 5. Yeah, just summer league demons, bro. Let's see who are the ones doing it right now. As of right now, I just got a notification on my phone. Terrence Shannon Jr. with 25 points in his freaking summer league debut. Shout out to the Timberwolves, man.
Phew,
Him,
man.
him and Rob Dillingham should be dominating the summer league. But yeah, let us know down below what you guys think of our teams. If there's any other summer league legends you want to mention, let us know down below as well. Jay, we're going to this final segment of the show, and it's time for the NBA quiz. And in this quiz, there's a reason why I decided to do this quiz, but I'm not going to tell you the reason until afterwards. But
Okay.
it has to do. But Jay, for this quiz, I'm going to need you to name me the top 10 scorers of all time who have not made an All-NBA first team. So the top scorers of all time, but they couldn't have made an All-NBA first team.
Huh. Okay, specifically not the first team?
They could have made All-NBA, but not the first team. I'll tell you the barometer. So number 1 has 28K and number 10 is 21K.
Huh. Okay. I'm trying to think. Huh. Wow.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of these are a lot of like names that you're gonna know for sure.
Names I'm gonna know though?
You're gonna know like I might have to help you with like 1 or 2 of them, but you're gonna know like all these names. A lot of them are current too. Like not current, like
They're
but, like our
current?
era.
Oh, okay. That was
But,
about to scare me.
I mean there's some current guys, but yeah, no, there's some guys from like our era of basketball.
Trying to think of guys who probably made all NBA teams but just weren't first. Okay, so what about what about ugh. Who's like a second or like third banana that we like? Is Clay Thompson? Well, no, Clay Thompson had to have made a first team, right? Or like maybe just not that high as a scorer.
Not that high as a scorer, yeah.
So they had to play for a decent amount of time as well.
A lot of these guys have been number 1 options in their career at some point. Remember, All NBA first team was like the top 5 players in the league. So
Yeah, that's actually a good hit. But yeah, but they didn't make the first 5, but they made the next 5 or the next 5 after that, I guess. I'm gonna think of players that just played really long. Is Vince Carter on the list?
At number 3, 25,728 points. He's over here.
Okay. Who else has like played really long that we know is like a bucket? That was a really great hint. They've been a number 1 option at some point in their career. Oh, considering how crouchy the forward position was, I love my man's, but like, shout out to the quiz of like what feels like a month ago, but like, is Paul Pierce here?
Number 2 on the list, 26,300.
Okay. What about his running mate Ray Allen?
Number 6 on the list, 24,405 points.
That's where I used the hint. The Milwaukee stint kind of helped me out with that one a little bit.
Yeah. There's one player on this list that caused me to do this. Like that made me like, you know what, I should do this type of list, this type of quiz. It's like one answer because he's kind of relevant to today's show.
Relevant to today's show. Interesting. Okay, I'm not sure if I'll get that one off rip because I'm thinking pretty old right now. Like I'm trying to think of like like where were there years where like the position was just like so stacked that like how were you supposed to make first team?
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
Like all those years where you played and Jordan was the shooting guard on the other side, how many guys couldn't have made first team because like he
Yeah.
was part of the guard group?
Yes.
So like Reggie Miller might be here.
Number 5 on the list, 25,279.
Okay. What about is like Clyde here?
Clyde made one first team.
Oh, okay.
I
Well,
was thinking the
okay,
same
that
thing.
makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, he made one first team.
Uh,
You're still missing number 1, and this guy retired like really recently.
Okay, the same thing I'm doing with Jordan is the same thing I have to do with like LeBron, right? I think like theoretically speaking, that has to be the way that this happens because we have to think about this from the perspective of like crouchy position.
Yes.
Okay, so Paul Pierce missed it because of Braun, probably a lot of times, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Um, Shush.
This guy at number 1 has like a very close connection to LeBron.
Oh wow, is it Melo?
It's Carmelo Anthony at number 1, 28,289. He just couldn't get over. I mean, LeBron was in his freaking was drafted the same year as him. There was just like super hard to get him into the first team.
Dang. Okay.
So you got number 1. So you're missing number 4, then 7 to 10. There's a couple of guys from the 80s. You got one current day guy, and then you got one guy from this. You have like, and then one guy from the 60s.
From the 60s. Okay.
That's
Whoa. Okay.
that's the one I'm probably gonna help.
80s.
That's the one I'm probably gonna help you with later.
How many did James Worthy ever make first team?
He did.
He did.
I know he's also like not like super high on the list in terms of like he's not like a scorer, like one of the best scorers of all time.
Okay. Did Dennis Rodman ever make first team?
No, but he just didn't score enough.
I'm trying to think of dudes who were like buckets, but like
That's a good way to put it, at least for the guys from the 80s. There's one guy who was not a bucket, but he's played like I think the most games in NBA history. I think that's like his claim to fame.
oh my god. Wow. What the heck? Okay, that's not the guy I was thinking of. What about with all those West Point guys? I mean, I know all NBA isn't like division by isn't like conference and conference, but like what about all those West Point guards like from 2010, 2015 to 2015?
I'll tell you right now, that's that. Stay away from that thought process.
Oh, okay, dang, because I was gonna say maybe like Tony Parker.
He just didn't score enough points, I don't think.
Okay. Jesus Christ, this list is dwindling.
Yeah.
Did Powell ever make did he ever make an all NBA first team?
That's the funny thing you mentioned, Val, because he's the first guy off the list.
Oh, Payne.
I was wondering, because I saw him like down here, and I was like, is he? I'm like, oh, he would have made it if he wasn't. Like, it was just like underneath.
Oh, that's so Payne. Okay, current players.
This guy was a bucket everywhere he's gone. He's about to start his next chapter on a new team next season.
Is it DeMar?
It's DeMar DeRozan. The reason why
I'm dead.
DeMar DeRozan.
That's funny. I had to put that together, but like that's kind of hilarious, actually.
DeMar DeRozan, 23,582. This guy, look, all these guys are Hall of Famers. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. We might have to talk about this on another podcast. He's gonna make the Hall of Fame. I don't care if he make the Hall of Fame. But yeah, he's the last current guy. Then you got a couple of 80s. You have 3 80s guys and the 60s guys. So I'm gonna help you out here.
80s. What in Sam Hill?
Think Western Conference for a couple of these 80s guys. Sure, they weren't probably like the best players in the league, but these guys were just like scoring a bunch. Some of the best scorers in the 80s. Very underrated. They're not talked about much. They're kind of like the Mellows of that era.
The Mellows of that era. Wow. That is. That's actually a very interesting analogy, actually.
One guy spent a lot of his career with the Denver Nuggets.
Alex English?
Alex English at number 4, 25,613.
Okay. It's funny because I was thinking Bob McAdoo, but I'm like, no, that guy was different.
He won MVP one year, so I don't think it was
Yeah,
like
I was gonna say he was different. That can't be it.
yeah. Again, you got number 8 who had the most games played in NBA history.
What the? Who is that?
He wasn't a scorer per se. He definitely was a scorer. He's a center, and he won a lot of championships because of a certain team.
Like Mikhail?
So close. So close.
Robert Parrish?
Robert Parrish at number 8, 23,000.
What the heck? Wow.
334.
What the heck?
Okay, I'm gonna help you out these last two. You got number 9. Spent a lot of the time with the Utah Jazz, also some time with the Pistons. No. He started off his career at 77, got retired in 1991. Like he was a rookie of the year. He had like multiple 30-point per game seasons. This might be these last two are really tough. The other guy, number 10, 76er player, 60s. Like he's just like one of those like prototypical like 60s guys that they like mentioned from here to there as like those like pioneers of the game. This guy's
60s? What
I don't know.
heck?
Okay, maybe you might not know him. His initials are HG.
HG. Only HG I know, brother, is Horace Grant, and that is not the answer.
No. Okay, these two might be the last ones to be hard. Number 10 is Hal Greer.
Oh, I wasn't gonna get that, but like, okay.
Yeah. And then number 9, his initials are AD. Just a bucket from the 80s.
AD. What teams did he play for?
For the Jazz, for the Pistons. Those were his two main teams. Spent some time with the Lakers. I didn't even know that, huh? Spent some time with the Lakers. But his best years were with the Jazz. He was like a 6-time All-Star with them. 4 straight 30-point per game seasons.
When was this?
In the 80s. Initials AD.
Who is this? Can you tell me what position he played?
Small forward.
Okay, you said it's AD?
Yeah.
Who do I know that? Who do I know?
His first name he shares with trying to think. What other guy in the league?
Wait, tell me the PPG again.
30 points per game. 30 points per game. He had like 4 straight seasons of 30 points per game. He has the same first name as the Milwaukee Bucks head coach before the current one.
Oh, you know what the problem was? I wasn't sure because the AD thing threw me off a little bit, and then I kind of got back on. Is this Adrian Dantley?
Adrian Dantley, yeah. That's
oh,
the guy
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I think the only thing is, didn't he like average 30 points for like a career or something?
He averaged 24 points
or at least 30,
or
maybe he averaged like 30 points for like Utah. I don't know, something like that.
I think for Utah, yeah, crazy numbers with the Utah Jazz. He just always got injured. A lot of these games were like I see some like 50s, some 40s. Yeah, he just always got injured, but he was a bucket.
I wouldn't have got Hal Greer though. I'm sorry, man.
It's okay.
Hal Greer is one of those like 2K names to me, bro.
Yeah, no, this is a tough list, but yeah, I just thought that DeRozan was like really high on the list for all-time scoring, and he's probably gonna finish like 25K plus. So yeah, he's the one who inspired this list. But yeah, that's the quiz. Crazy list. Let us know down below what you guys think. It's one of those quizzes that got Jay a little bit stumped, but we got her in the end.
Yeah, that was a good one. I like the ones that end up coming. Like, don't get me wrong, we're very good at naming obscure like guys, like when we come up with them. But on these lists where you gotta kind of get to the obscure name, it's a little different. So that one definitely got me. I'm gonna have to log Hal Greer as somebody to keep in mind.
Yeah, so yeah, that was that quiz. Let us know down below what you guys think of this or any of the other topics that we discussed today. Jay, we've reached another end of another awesome episode. Thank you guys for watching. What do you have to tell these beautiful people before we sign out?
So we all know that the dog days of the NBA summer is kind of like, in effect to a certain extent. Summer League is only going to hold us off for so long. Olympics basketball is only interesting to some, and obviously, we're logging into this WNBA content, and that's going to be its thing. But stick with us, guys. We have a very fun offseason plan, a bunch of evergreen topics that we'll be able to visit at the beginning, middle, and end of next season, even that are going to be really interesting little tidbits to be able to keep an eye on as we look forward to next season. And look, the biggest names in free agency have changed teams, but the biggest names on the trade block are still well and aware of possibility. Lauri Markkanen, Jeremy Grant, Kyle Kuzma. Like, there's a handful of guys who still could kind of like sway the balance of power in the NBA that might end up on a different team next year. And it's gonna be cool to see how that thing plays out with those kind of guys, because if you thought parity was a key phrase for last year, man, I don't think we've seen anything yet with what next year has like in store for us, which I'm really, really excited about.
Yeah, and it's going to be an awesome year, and you're going to be able to follow along throughout this entire offseason, WNBA, Olympics, Summer League, everything on the HF Ethos podcast. So, yeah, thank you guys for watching this episode. They show off to our personal socials again down below, the YouTube, the social medias, and the podcast networks. We all appreciate your support all over there. And, yeah, we're going to be back with you next week when we discuss, Jay, top 10 players in the league you see.
Ooh, controversy!
Controversial episode next week, and you don't want to miss that one. But yeah, awesome episode today. Thank you guys for watching or listening. This is TV. This is Jay. We're signing out. Peace.